The situation has escalated rapidly, moving from simmering diplomatic tensions to a full-blown security crisis that threatens to shatter the hard-won stability achieved just a few years ago. This is not merely a localized dispute, it is a geopolitical flashpoint, with the potential to destabilize a region critical to global trade and security. Recent weeks have seen a dramatic increase in military activity along their shared border, with both nations accusing the other of preparing for an imminent attack. The international community, from the United Nations to the African Union, is now scrambling to respond to a crisis that could plunge the entire Horn of Africa back into a cycle of violence. To understand the current crisis, one must look back at the long and often bloody history that binds Ethiopia and Eritrea. For 30 years, Eritrea was part of Ethiopia, but it fought a bitter war for independence, which it finally achieved in 1993. The initial post-independence relationship was cordial, but it quickly soured over economic and political disputes, culminating in a devastating border war from 1998 to 2000. This conflict, fought over small, seemingly insignificant parcels of land like the town of Badme, cost tens of thousands of lives and left a legacy of profound mistrust. The 1998-2000 war ended with a peace agreement in Algiers, establishing a boundary commission to demarcate the border. In 2002, the commission awarded Badme to Eritrea, but Ethiopia refused to accept the ruling, leading to a prolonged stalemate. For nearly 2 decades, the two countries existed in a state of no war, no peace, with their armies facing each other across a heavily militarized border. The alarming escalation in tensions can be traced to new and unresolved grievances, chief among them Ethiopia's resurgent campaign for sea access. Since late 2023, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has made assertive statements about Ethiopia's right to a port on the Red Sea, framing it as an existential issue. His rhetoric is seen as a direct threat in Eritrea, which fears Ethiopia has designs on its southern port of Assab. This dispute is compounded by a breakdown in the personal alliance between Abiy and Isaias, once united during the Tigray War, but now divided over the Pretoria peace deal and shifting regional alignments. Eritrea was excluded from the peace process with the TPLF, fueling suspicion and resentment. Each side now accuses the other of forging new alliances, turning former comrades in arms into wary adversaries. In a decisive move, Ethiopia officially escalated its concerns to the global stage on 27 October 2025. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs dispatched a formal letter to the United Nations and African Union calling for urgent international mediation. By inviting external actors, Addis Ababa is attempting to frame itself as the reasonable party, committed to a peaceful resolution, and willing to subject its position to international scrutiny. Ethiopia seeks to internationalize the dispute, ensuring any conflict is seen as a threat to regional and global security. Foreign Minister Gideon Timotheos's letter emphasized Ethiopia's commitment to good faith negotiations and a vision of shared prosperity. It is a calculated effort to seize the diplomatic high ground and paint Eritrea's anticipated rejection as evidence of its intransigence. Eritrea's response to Ethiopia's call for international mediation was swift and utterly dismissive. In a statement, Asmara rejected the notion of any external involvement, labeling Ethiopia's appeal as political theatrics. This position is deeply rooted in Eritrea's political culture, defined by self-reliance and distrust of international institutions. President Isaias Afwerki's government views bodies like the UN Security Council as instruments of powerful nations, not neutral arbiters. Eritrea insists African problems should be solved by Africans, without foreign interference. For Eritrea, accepting international mediation would be seen as a surrender of sovereignty, anathema to a state forged in a 30-year struggle for independence. The escalating crisis has sent ripples of concern throughout the international community, prompting a range of reactions from global powers and regional neighbors. The United Nations, having received Ethiopia's request, has acknowledged the gravity of the situation and reiterated its support for peaceful dialogue. Behind the scenes, the UN is preparing a detailed briefing for the Security Council, which could lead to the appointment of a special envoy for the Horn of Africa. The African Union, headquartered in Addis Ababa, finds itself in a delicate but crucial position. The AU has welcomed Ethiopia's call for mediation, stating its readiness to facilitate talks if both parties agree. However, the AU's effectiveness is contingent on Eritrea's cooperation, which so far has not been forthcoming. Asmara's blanket rejection of all mediation, including from the AU, presents a significant challenge to the organization's diplomatic capacity. The tension with Eritrea cannot be understood in isolation from Ethiopia's volatile internal political landscape. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government is grappling with multiple security crises, most notably the ongoing rebellion in the Amhara region. The Fano militia, once allied with the Federal Army during the Tigray War, is now engaged in a widespread insurgency. Ethiopia accuses Eritrea of supporting the Fano militia, adding a dangerous layer to the bilateral dispute. If true, the border tension is not just a state-to-state issue, but is intertwined with Ethiopia's civil conflicts. Addis Ababa alleges Asmara is funding and arming Fano fighters to weaken the central government. This transforms the Amhara insurgency from a domestic problem into a proxy battleground, making peaceful resolution far more difficult. The prospect of renewed war between Ethiopia and Eritrea carries risks that extend far beyond their shared border, threatening to plunge the entire Horn of Africa into crisis. Both countries are still reeling from recent conflicts, Ethiopia from the brutal Tigray War and Eritrea from its deep involvement in that same war. Their economies are fragile, and millions already face food insecurity. Another large-scale conflict would trigger a humanitarian disaster, leading to mass casualties, displacement, and a refugee crisis that would overwhelm neighboring countries and aid organizations. The economic consequences would be equally devastating, shattering fragile progress and diverting resources from development to destruction. For Ethiopia, a conflict would halt its economic reform agenda and deter foreign investment. For Eritrea, already isolated, war would further entrench poverty and dependence on military expenditure. As October 2025 draws to a close, Ethiopia and Eritrea stand at a perilous crossroads. Down one path lies the catastrophic certainty of war, a conflict that would devastate their people and risk engulfing the wider Horn of Africa. Down the other path lies the difficult road of dialogue, demanding compromise and genuine political will to step back from the brink. The choice between these futures rests on the shoulders of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and President Isaias Afwerki. The immediate need is for de-escalation. Both sides must pull back their forces and cease inflammatory rhetoric that has poisoned the atmosphere. International partners,